If you're a VTuber, or anyone who commissions art, writing, scripts, etc., you've probably heard of VGen. VGen, before the buzz, was a small invite-only artist website where you could commission different artists based on your style preferences. Prices were affordable, communication was efficient, the entire thing seemed very useful for content creators. Nowadays, VGen has turned into an extremely widespread commissioning website with literally anything you could probably ask for, and some things you might not. Prices have skyrocketed. It's littered with brand new artists, some of whom who don't know how to use licenses or communicate, and the search filters are occasionally subpar. That being said, it's still a great website in most places, but what are the pros and cons? Let's find out. Before we start this video, I have a large disclaimer for any artists, writers, or VGen workers who watch this. As a writer and someone who's part of the artist sphere, if you have a high influx of commissions, a large amount of experience, or you just need to keep your comms higher to afford to live, do that. I'm not claiming you should lower your prices. I'm only commenting on the absurd monetization fees that have been popping up ever since VGen decided to drop the new lingo. And we're gonna start with the cons here, so bear with me before we get into the pros. Let's get to it. Before the most recent update, VGen had a few hard set rules. One big item that needed clarification in the request form was licenses. If you don't know what licenses are, that's personal use, monetized or content use, and commercial or merch use. The problem with VGen licenses is that, in the past, people often didn't understand what monetized use meant, and they'd upcharge VTubers or content creators just for them to post on their social media accounts, even if they didn't earn any money from it, which is like 90% of the content creation sphere. People still don't quite understand the difference between personal use, posting on unmonetized social media per se, and commercial content or monetized use, which would be posting to a monetized YouTube channel like an outro or a Twitch stream. Add that to the various language barriers that VGen has, and you might be shit out of luck. Now, if you thought that was rough before, take a gander at the recent updates. VGen pushed out an update that, instead of using the word monetized, the license for content use is now considered commercial. That means, in simple terms, that creators with language barriers who previously believed the commercial meant making merch now see the same word used for content, and you get huge price raises, merely so you can post on your social media, likely without any revenue coming from it. For clarification, this also might not just be because of language barriers. That's just what I believe it is, because I feel that a lot of VGen artists really speak a lot of different languages, and I think that's really cool, but it's hard to learn English. English is weird and annoying. Anyway, this singles out a lot of VTubers and content creators who either don't have a full-time job, are in college, or just can't afford to spend over $200 on a single piece of art that they'll post and then move on from. Beyond that, VGen doesn't have a pricing filter. It's something many people have expressed disdain over, and the response nearly every time has been that VGen artists would be forced to lower their prices, a race to the bottom, if you will, much like Fiverr is. However, we're already seeing an influx of artists lying about their TOS, or generally slinking around the licenses to reel people in and then slamming them with fees. For instance, after countless hours of scrolling on VGen to create a list of artists that I can afford, the most common quote-unquote scam that I saw was artists either fully including or excluding every license, only to change their TOS and describe hefty fees depending on how you use the art. After 3 hours of scrolling, I probably saw over 20 artists doing this specific tactic. There are also plenty of artists who do what I call the Fiverr tactic, aka placing their prices extremely low and then clarifying in the description of the gig or service that the beginner price you got so excited for was in fact not for the full bodies on display, but for a headshot. Again, artists deserve to be paid the same as anyone else. If they want to raise their prices, they should. I'm just commenting on what's happening to bring it to the attention of new and existing users. And I guess, as a small qualm of my own, a lot of the time artists will add you to an extremely long waitlist without showcasing it on the VGen website, and they'll wait until the very last week of a 4 or 5 month period to even send in a sketch. At that point, VGen most likely can't even refund you. I will also note a few points about VGen payments. As an artist, VGen will automatically tick off VGen payments as on without you doing so. VGen payments is an alternative to PayPal, and they're processed exclusively through Stripe. If a client pays with VGen payments before you can turn it off, it will remain enabled until that commission is fully finished. That means milestones for large projects. If they paid 1 milestone with VGen payments, they're gonna have to pay all of the rest, and you cannot turn it off. Now, the first thing I don't like about that alternative is that they lock it. You can't access the funds until you've fully completed the commission without explicit permission, regardless of how long that it takes. Then, once you've finished it and they're released, it takes extra time to process and release, and then you have to manually release them, but only if they're over $50. This can take 3 to 4 business days, but it often takes longer than that. It's a great great alternative for those who can't use PayPal worldwide, but it's a bit finicky at times and can be very difficult to disable if you don't want clients to pay with it. Anyway, we've talked about what sucks when you're looking for art, but what about when you're selling art? What should you look out for? As someone who's sold on Fiverr and VGen for over half a decade now, I can definitely tell you what you're gonna face. First off, and this may be exclusive to writing, but people aren't gonna pay you if you spend an hour talking with them about what they hypothetically want. I've had people request that I read hours worth of content before I even start working, just because I need to understand everything thoroughly before I'm paid. VGen does not moderate that. I've also had countless experiences where my clients repeatedly violated my terms of service by requesting dozens of revisions, and yet I was the one punished for delivering without completion. They can also leave a terrible review, and I wouldn't be able to see it because it wouldn't be unlocked until I either took the gamble and rated them 5 stars or lower. Really, I think the artists have it better than the clients on VGen from plenty of experience on both ends. Clients can be difficult, but I'd take a little scuffle over scrolling mindlessly for 4 hours just to find one artist that fits my budget. This is niche, so if you're an artist, feel free to skip ahead. But artists are the major providers on VGen, and if you're pretty much anything else, you're gonna be overshadowed. I'm a writer, and I can't really have my prices even slightly high, or else people will simply just not buy. On VGen, art is valued higher than essentially anything else, so if you're looking to sell writing or any other niche commission work like music, or even editing sometimes, make sure you do research on the other niches on the platform and how they're treated or received. So, we've talked about the negatives and some criticism. What are the positives? VGen is massive. That means there's any art style, writing style, editing style, etc. You can find pretty much anything on VGen, and I'd say there's a 99% chance that it's made by a human rather than generative AI, like on Fiverr and Etsy and such, due to VGen's strict no AI rule. You all know how much I despise AI, so that's a gigantic plus. Also, surprisingly, there's more security on VGen than other websites. Their flow of requests, proposals, and payments enables VGen to implement safety precautions that strongly protect the artists. Maybe not the clients as much as the artists, but still, there's safety somewhere. Their staff is also pretty active on pretty much all platforms. I will say that their staff is severely overworked and can be a bit blunt, but I understand that. VGen has blown up way more than anyone ever expected. VGen has an easy-to-access interface that's decently self-explanatory. I mentioned having to scroll for 4+ hours, but realistically, that's the most that you'll have to do. They have every niche tab that you could think of to hone down what you're looking for, and then you scroll from there. I just had to scroll forever because I was looking into illustrations, which is the most saturated market that VGen has to date. VGen also has a very convenient shop feature where people can sell pre-made human-made assets. Most customizable models are accessible through VGen, and they're all under $200 for the most part, which is relatively affordable for most content creators on a budget. Whether or not your PC can handle streaming and a customizable model at the same time is another question. Still, the shop has very promising features, and it's extremely easy to use and sift through. There are schedules, graphics, models, hand assets, background music, and anything you could ever need, affordable and accessible. VGen also has a really cute side website called VSona, accessible from VGen itself. It's a way for you to gather all of the art of certain characters that you've created so you can link the entirety of their portfolio to artists rather than sending the art piece by piece. It's extremely useful when you're a VTuber, and you can just toss your persona their way without having to provide detailed descriptions. It's also free. VSona has a popularity notation. Depending on the amount of likes your VSona has, the more popular it becomes. Sometimes artists scroll VSona and sketch out characters when they're bored, so the higher your character is on VSona, the more likely you are to get random fan art. VGen also holds different contests. I will say they're almost exclusively for artists, which means any of the niches I mentioned before are gonna have to work twice as hard to be seen. Still, art competitions are fun and provide a challenge to fight burnout. Plus, having a theme as an inspo is nice when you're bored. One of my favorite current updates that VGen released was the For You, Following, and Trending tabs. As someone who's chronically forgetful and on a budget, I often follow loads of affordable artists, so having a following tab to scroll through and pick from helps a lot with finding artists in a shorter time span, though it still takes an hour or more to find what I need most days because I'm picky. It's nice to have all the other tabs as well. For You is sometimes fun to just scroll and collect from, and Trending, though often pricey, is interesting to see. And it all depends on your personal budget, so don't feel the need to follow exactly what I do. If you have lots of money to spend on art, go surf that Trending tab. The artists deserve it. All in all, VGen is a fantastic website with its share of pros and cons, as any website has. Right now, it's the leading VTuber commissioning website, and I think it should stay that way, even if it has a few problems to fix. Stay cool, punk rockers. Peace out.